Hey friend, Graham here from recordingrevolution.com, and today I'm going to break down for you my 4 predictions for where the music industry is going in the next decade. But real quick, before all that, earlier this year I teamed up with Grammy award-winning producer Jacquire King to put together an all-comprehensive, in-depth course on the art of record making. And we're going to be reopening the course really soon. So if you would like to learn how to record, mix, and produce from someone who's worked with Kings of Leon and James Bay and Norah Jones and Kaleo, among many others, then go to recordmaking.org for more details so you don't miss it. The link's below and it's in the description as well. Recordmaking.org for all the details on this incredible course. Now on to the predictions. Prediction number 1. Analog gear is going to become less and less relevant moving forward. Now, I'm going to ruffle some feathers by saying this, but I am 100% sure that mixing out of the box, aka with analog equipment, is going to virtually be a thing of the past in the next decade. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not an analog hater, like some people think. I'm not an analog hater. Some of my favorite records, in fact, most of my favorite records were made on analog gear, but it is getting harder and harder to justify the cost, let alone the hassle. Let's just say you're willing to deal with the hassle, but the cost of an analog desk or outboard equipment, even the upkeep of vintage, beautiful microphones, it's very hard to justify the cost. For example, just a while back, I did a review of this amazing new website called Audio Test Kitchen, where you can compare literally hundreds and hundreds of microphones and a blind test, if you want to, against each other. And so many of the viewers of that video went and tested it out themselves. And guess what? They preferred the sound of cheaper microphones when they did a blind test. Well, what does this mean? Well, first of all, it means that you don't need to spend thousands of dollars to get a great sounding microphone. But secondly, and more importantly, what this tells us is that it is not about the tools that you use to record and mix. It's about the music you hear in your head and what you do to get that music to come out of the speakers the way you hear it. Do you need a vintage Neumann microphone to get a great vocal? Do you need Yamaha NS10s to get a great mix? Do you need to run your tracks through an SSL console to get a great sound? Do you need to run your vocal through a tube compressor or preamp to get a great sound? You know the answer by now. No. Now, again, I might get some flack for saying this, but I think the plugins today in the box have already gone past what analog gear can do and have for quite some time now. There are tons of analog modeling plugins out there, and having a modern DAW like Pro Tools or fill in the blank with whatever DAW you prefer, the editing capabilities and the power inside of that software far outweighs any advantage you get from the extra cost with analog gear. In fact, here's a quick list of what you actually need to get a great sounding song recorded at home. A DAW, DAW, digital audio workstation, such as Pro Tools, Logic, or even GarageBand, the free app that comes on a Mac. A decent audio interface like the Focusrite Scarlett Solo. A couple of microphones, a large diaphragm condenser microphone for vocals, and maybe a dynamic microphone for instruments. And finally, headphones and or speakers to accurately listen to your mixes. And that's all you really need. In fact, most of this software that you buy come with amazing included stock plugins that can help you get your tracks to sound radio ready right out of the box. Which brings me to my second prediction. We are stepping into the next stage of the recording revolution where home studios will and are producing the music of the future. Now, of course, there are things that you can still only get in a big professional studio. Usually the live tracking rooms, the echo chambers, the space for having an orchestra play together and score a movie, let's say. But so much of the sound reasons why you would go to a pro studio can be overcome in a home studio with strategic use of plugins and software. Look at an artist like Billie Eilish, who has had massive success, and all her music has been produced in her bedroom by her brother. No one's listening to her songs and saying, oh, it could have sounded better if it had been produced and mixed on an SSL console. No, they don't even care or even know. All they are listening to is her art and connecting with her as an artist. What this means for you is that the real restriction in how good your music sounds is your knowledge and skill in recording, mixing, and producing. So don't feel bad for not having the best gear in the world, or having a small bedroom studio with no acoustic treatment, or having to record your vocals in a closet. Remember that people that listen to music are listening to music. Focus on making good music. And then it's just as simple as recording it right, putting it through a strategic mix process, adjusting and tweaking as best as you can, and then you'll have something that sounds radio ready. Now, none of this is to say that it wasn't actually better to record on pure analog gear back in the day. There are actually some disadvantages to recording digitally in the box like we do today in our home studios. For example, one of the problems that plagues us in this modern music making age is that we mix with our eyes. Let me explain what I mean. This happens most often with EQ. You're EQing a track to get it to sound as good as possible, and you're looking at a graphical curve of what the EQ is doing, whether it's a boost or a cut. And so your mind is telling you that's enough of a boost or enough of a cut, or too much of a boost or too much of a cut visually. And you're relying on visual data when that means jack squat for something that's supposed to sound a certain way. Our ears should be the judge. And it's so tempting to just see a curve and go, yeah, that looks like a good snare drum EQ curve. Who in the world is going to look at your snare drum EQ curve? No one. It needs to sound good. So, for example, here's a little test for you when you're mixing your next song, you're working on some EQ. There might be a vocal, and you might notice that it sounds a little honky or little chest voicey around 200 hertz, and that's pretty common. And so you might want to scoop out or cut a little bit around 200 hertz. And you've listened to Graham. Good old Graham says, be subtle, work in subtle increments, so you're not doing extreme boosts just for the sake of extreme boosts. So you might just do a 3 dB or a 6 dB cut like I always tell you, and you might say, you know, that looks right. That looks like what Graham says. But really what Graham says is make sure it sounds right. And if you close your eyes, you might want to actually drag the gain down even more until it sounds beautiful. And you might look at it and realize it's a 16 dB cut. And that might freak you out visually. But you know what? Who cares? All that matters is what does it sound like. And if it sounds better with a 16 dB cut, then you should have a 16 dB cut in it. The same could be true for like a high shelf boost. You want to get a little bit more air on the vocal. So you might bump up the boost a little bit. And if you see me, a lot of times I'll do 1.5 dB of a shelf boost, just a little bit. But sometimes that's not enough. So you need to close your eyes and crank it. I find this to be true on sampled pianos, virtual pianos that come in a plugin. They never have that air that a real piano has with a microphone. But this can be overcome with extreme high frequency boost on an EQ. It looks extreme. It makes my heart fall apart because I'm like, that's crazy, but it sounds good. So close your eyes, make the move, then look at where your mouse left off, and that's the right EQ curve. Like I said, it's about taking the musical idea in your head and making it a reality in the computer with the tools that you have, which leads me to my third prediction. There will be more independent success in music. We've already seen artists like Macklemore or Chance the Rapper reach super high levels of success as independent artists without a record deal. This will become more and more commonplace in the next decade as there are more tools and opportunities for artists to directly connect with their fans and grow their fan base and become discovered online than ever before. And this exposure will lead to them being able to have a musical career without the need of a record label. Now, don't get me wrong, record labels will still exist to pump up the really big mainstream artists out there, but you're going to find that more and more of the music we learn about and consume and love are going to come directly from independent artists who bypass the label, bypass the big marketing spend, and connect directly with their fans through social media, YouTube, and other places. Plus, with so much free knowledge out there on how to record and mix and produce your music at home, you're going to see more artists skip the need for a big studio and the big budget of a label and be able to make their own music the way they want to make it and then distribute it directly to their fans. It's a no-brainer that this is going to happen more and more, which leads me to my fourth and final prediction. Knowing how to make records is what will separate the pros from the amateurs. Try to understand this. With so much music being made today at such high production levels and sounding so quality, the only real way to stand out of the crowd isn't to try to create a cool sound in your productions. Anyone can make a cool sound in their productions these days. It's gonna be the songs with the strongest lyrics, great melodies, and appropriate arrangements that stand out more and more. Think about an artist like Adele. Her biggest song, Someone Like You, isn't an over the top production. It's just her pouring her heart out with a piano and one backing vocal track in the bridge. That's it. And it takes someone with experience to hear a song idea and be able to say, hey, we don't need a big orchestra or big drums or a bunch of strings for this song. It just needs to be produced in a way that expresses the musical idea. And that's the difference between an amateur demo and a professional record. The record isn't overdone. It's not trying too hard. It's doing what's needed and only what's needed to express and convey the musical idea. Unfortunately, making a professional record isn't something that technology can shortcut for us. The only way you or I or any of us can learn how to do that, to have the mind of a record maker, is to see someone do it who has a lot of experience. And it's a skill that takes time to perfect. It's gonna take multiple tries to get really, really good at the art and craft of record making. That's why people wanna buy their way out of this process, because that seems faster, but it isn't faster. You have to just learn it and practice it. And the good thing is, though, is that back in the day, the only way to learn this stuff was to learn it in person. You would have to go to audio school. You would have to beg and borrow and steal your way into an internship at a professional studio, which is what I did. Not steal, but begged. Go through a bunch of loops and hoops and a bunch of red tape to just get in the room to watch and learn from someone who's been doing that. You don't have to do that anymore, because now with so many in-depth interviews and videos and discussions with Grammy award-winning engineers and producers and mixers spread out all over the internet, if you just go searching for this stuff, you can learn what they know. And just like recording and mixing, it isn't something that's impossible to learn. Now that brings me to something special I'd love to share with you real quick. At the start of this video, I mentioned to you that we're gonna be reopening this amazing course, Record Making with Jacquire King, Grammy award-winning producer and mixer, in a few days. And honestly, if you're looking to kickstart 2020 with your music and make this the year that you actually make the best sounding music you've ever made, then I can't think of anything better than for you to take this course and become one of my new students. We've had over 1,000 students dive into this course, get amazing results, have amazing feedback, and I want you to be one of them as well. Here's the cool thing about it. Inside this course, you're gonna see how Grammy award-winning producer Jacquire King takes a demo of one of my songs and turns it into a professional finished production. You get to see the whole process, the idea behind it, and then every step of the way of how we recreate the song in his studio, top to bottom. And again, besides seeing his complete method and techniques and strategy and setup for how to record and mix and produce at a professional level, you're gonna see something even more important. You're gonna get inside of Jacquire's mind and see the bird's eye view that he has for taking a song idea and fleshing it out to a complete production. Not just the what or the how, but the why. The decision-making process that goes from raw idea to killer sounding record. It's a massive course, over 30 plus hours of content where you get to be a fly on the wall inside of a Grammy award-winning producer's studio and see how he approaches the art and skill of record making, from his go-to microphones and placements on instruments like drums and guitars and vocals, to how he interacts with musicians in the studio to coax them and coach them to get the best performance possible. It's all inside this course. Now, we're going to be reopening this course to new students very, very soon. So if you'd like to see a sneak peek of the course and be notified the moment the course opens up so you don't miss your opportunity to join, then just go to recordmaking.org. The link is below in the description, recordmaking.org, and sign up. And like I said, you'll get a sneak peek right away and you'll be notified the moment the course goes live. That's it for today's video. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for liking and subscribing. I hope these 4 predictions encourage you and paint a picture of where I think the music industry is going. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave me a comment below as well. Where do you think the music industry is going? What's one big prediction you have? That's it for me, my friend. I'll see you on another video real soon.
Let's just be clear here. You can make a great record at home. If the idea is there and the inspiration is there and you're creative, you do not need to go to a commercial studio to make a great recording or something that's compelling. Whether you're a producer working with other artists or you're a self-producing artist, I will show you my approach to recording, producing, and mixing professional sounding records. From vocals, instruments, the gear I use, arranging, interaction, the whole studio environment, we'll cover it all.